Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time again to square off. Let's meet our distinguished panel for the great debate discussion. The square off king of rhetoric. Here is Professor Rick Vatz, square off's spiritual leader, the amazing Pastor Shannon Wright, who is never wrong. We have attorney Chris Kennedy, one of the best, and talk show extraordinaire, the very talented, very popular Marc Steiner. Now, what we have a lot to do. At the beginning of this debate on Thursday night, Joe Biden was speaking softly. He coughed. He gave confusing answers. He appeared often to lose his train of thought and ended an answer with the statement, "We finally beat Medicare." Trump critics say that that former president told lies all the way through much of this debate, making comments that were not fact-checked. Rick Vatz, you're our resident expert on debate. Let's have your summary.
I thought it was an unmitigated disaster for Joe Biden. I think that he was unclear. I think he was inarticulate. I think that the CNN people who would normally support him were just appalled at the end of the debate. I think that he really cannot come back from this, because the Democrats have an option. They can change their candidate for president and vice president, and there's plenty of time to do that. And they've got some good people like Amy Klobuchar, and they've got Josh Shapiro, they've got Chris Coons, they've got some people who are able to run a good presidential campaign. It depends on whether they are strong enough to do what's right and what's necessary.
Chris Kennedy.
You know, Richard, as a lawyer, I've been preparing witnesses for trial and deposition for a third of a century. And there's a real careful line between preparing a witness and over preparing a witness. And I think that's what happened here. He was over prepared in two respects. One, too much material and too much time spent by too many people filling his head with all that. And he became physically and mentally exhausted. And the worst mistake they made, in addition to over preparing him, was making the mistake that a good sports team never does. You never travel on game day. He should have been in Atlanta the day before, resting, checking out the set, going in there, get a good night's sleep. But they didn't do that. He was coming from the airport with less than an hour to go before kickoff. And I think that was the biggest mistake. They forgot that when he did the State of the Union address, not only did he have all the words in front of him, unlike last night where he had no notes, but he only had to go 10 blocks. So those were the horrible mistakes in preparing him that I think will haunt the Democratic Party for eternity.
All right, Shannon, let's hear from you, and then we'll hear from Marc Steiner, who's coming back after months and months of missing this great opportunity to further his career. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, I think the fact that we're talking about how he was prepped, whether he had to travel too far, whether he was well rested, all of that, that is a little disturbing in itself. It was quite clear who was able to stick on point, who was able to finish sentences, and who was not. And I understand a lot of folks are very specific to their party and policy and all that, but if we're going to hold a certain place on the global scale, it was very clear who absolutely is not capable of doing it. And that's the nicest way I can put it.
All right, Marc, welcome in.
I think last night was a disaster all the way around. It's the worst presidential debate I've seen since I was a kid when I first watched the debate, I think in 1960 with Kennedy Nixon. It was Trump lied his way through the entire debate, and Biden really sounded incompetent and looked incompetent. And it was really a disaster for the entire country that we face a very serious future here and across the globe. And these are the two men we have to choose from. And I think that we have it's a very difficult moment for America.
Prior to this debate, Jeffrey Marshall who is an Arizona Democrat. He had said that this debate has all the markings of a train wreck with chemical spillage that is lethally toxic. It was a difficult thing to watch. And let's open it up for discussion. What this might mean for the Democratic nominee at their convention.
Well, to have so quickly after the debate, Democrats talking about replacing Joe Biden. I mean, normally in a debate, when you do poorly, the party that supports you will find some way to rationalize that you had a great debate. And nobody that I found in the Democratic Party could argue that Joe Biden had a great debate. So I really think that there in the week or so after the debate, I think if people talk to him the same way that in 1974, John Rhodes and Hugh Scott and Barry Goldwater went to talk to Nixon to pull out of the presidency, I think that the Democrats can recover from this actually. But they need to do this, and they need to be unanimous. And I think they are unanimous, and it'll be interesting to see if they do it.
Go, Chris. Marc.
So, yeah. So, there's some people that think that there's some people in leadership in the Democratic Party who wanted this to happen and kind of talked him into having an early debate like this after the primaries were over, so the voters wouldn't be able to come back and do primaries again, but soon enough before the convention to be able to replace him and maybe deliberately over-prepare him and have him travel the day of in hopes that he would do exactly what he did last night to convince him, because he's a stubborn, proud guy, to back down, okay? Last night was clearly old man versus con man. And I think, if politics were baseball, the Democratic Party leadership would be going to the bullpen right now for a long reliever named Gavin Newsom. He's the guy. Okay. Now, I do agree that Shapiro is better on his feet than Newsom, I think, especially counterpunching. But Newsom has more name recognition than Shapiro. And I think the only way that this would work going forward to make everyone happy is to keep Harris as the vice president on the ticket, but put in Newsom, or if he doesn't want to do it, then Shapiro.
Newsom said the night of the debate that he would not be interested. Now,
he has to say that. Of course, he has to say that.
Right.
Of course, he says he's all behind Biden. But Marc, when Chris mentioned Newsom, you said, "Yeah." Why did you?
Because I think Newsom is probably one of the best people the Democrats have. Just his physical appearance, he's brilliant. He's popular in California, and he presents a youthful but thoughtful image. And I think that he'd be an absolutely powerful candidate for the Democrats to put up as president. I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of turmoil over the next few weeks, and you have to see what happens when the dust settles. I mean, I was flabbergasted watching the debate when I watched the debate. I was just flabbergasted to watch Biden to stumble so much and hear all the lies and pomposity out of Trump. And I really fear for the future of our country. This is what we have to look for. And I hope that in the coming weeks that the Democrats find somebody that can actually run and win, and not let the country go to the dump with Trump.
Well, Biden's people said that the president has a cold, and when asked at the post gathering of journalists, he told them that he had a sore throat. But how did you feel, Shannon, about, and of course you're the Republican candidate for mayor of Baltimore City, but how did you feel with those shots of Joe Biden and the weird facial expressions? And he was pale. He didn't look well at all. So what were your thoughts about him?
I actually kind of felt bad for him. He looked like someone that should not have been there. It almost looked like a bad case of elder abuse. He did not look ready to do what he needed to do. He did not look presidential. his facial expressions, mannerisms, and physical gestures made him actually look ill and perhaps not really sure at all times where he was or what he was supposed to be doing. The amount of incomplete sentences and missed words and all of those things in someone that wants to hold that position is scary and disturbing. And I understand we're in a very weird place in this country right now with the choices that we have for president. But I will say this, with the global scale of all the things that are going on, at the very least, we need someone that looks like they are still competent.
Let me say one thing about Joe Biden and family. If I had had a night as bad as Joe's, or if I had been known by my family to be losing it, they would never have been supportive of me to run for president and go through the embarrassment that Joe is going to go through and is going through now. I mean, you've got to have a family that cares about the country and not just themselves. I view Jill Biden as completely irresponsible. No good wife would allow her husband to appear publicly like this when she knows that that last night is an example of exactly what can happen to a man who is not neurologically able to be president and to participate in public debates anymore.
All right, what we're going to do is take a quick break, and then we'll get to Chris. A quick break. I want to talk about what the Democratic Party might do at their convention or even before their convention. First, ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure to introduce the official voice of Square Off, who's won another Emmy and another Oscar for his work on Square Off. Howard Mallison. Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you, Richard. You know, auto accidents are on the rise. And if your car has been in an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more people are trusting their auto repairs and auto maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models, and they offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Also, hands down, Baltimore is one of the best Steiner towns in the country, and the most popular of them all are the Double T diners. TT means totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, the Double T menu offers you so many choices, you'll want to order everything. With locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, Monday nights are lobster nights at By the Docks in Middle River, all part of the Double T family. Back to you, Richard.
All right, Howard, thank you very much for that. Now, this is a quote from Oliver Santos, who is an independent voter from Washington State. He said, "This is the most apprehensive I have ever felt about a presidential debate." He usually supports Democrats, says he felt a mixture of excitement and fear, a possible disaster in the making, where neither Biden nor Trump will look presidential. And some Trump critics say he lied and lied while Biden tried and tried. Chris, we were coming up to you.
Yeah, I like the phraseology of that. You know, I could see some parallels from the 1960 debate, where a lot of people credit Nixon losing because he wore the light colored suit and Kennedy wore the dark colored suit. So I wore my dark today in memory of that. So listen, there's the appearance issue, which is at work here. And in 2024, it is mind-boggling to me that nobody put any makeup on Biden, that nobody had a cup of hot tea and a strong cup of Earl Grey or an espresso off stage to give him a little pep before he went out there, to have some cough drops, none of that stuff. And here's the other thing that was key here. It was brilliant, I think, probably for the GOP to insist on no notes there at the desk, because they knew it would be hard to remember all that material. Knowing that, they should have had Biden memorize an acronym a sentence where there'd be like 8 or 9 key words, and then he comes out on the pad and pen and he immediately writes those 9 words down there, and it's his go-to list to remember the key issues like convicted felon, okay, or abortion, okay, or something that said, don't say Afghanistan, okay? Those were 3 glaring mistakes he made, and that all goes into how you prepare somebody. And I know Rick is an expert at this, being a media person. You have to be just as stunned, I would think, Rick, at the complete lack of preparation that went into this in the ways I've just described. It almost invites the conspiracy notion that they wanted him to fall flat on his face because they've tried to ask him since the midterms to step down. But he's a proud, strong man going to church every day. He will not back down from any fight, but they needed this to happen to convince him to step away.
I don't think that's the case, because there are too many people who love Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. But I do remember in prior debates when Ronald Reagan had a horrible debate, he had a lot of support from his party. And the next debate, he wasn't over prepared, and he didn't go through these hours and hours of preparation that leave him so full of information that he can't process them. I mean, and in the Kennedy debate, it was so ridiculous for Nixon to debate him because John Kennedy was not well known. But in debate, he looked like a young, stalwart individual who was articulate on top of everything. And Nixon, who still had his 5 o'clock shadow, looked terrible, and they claimed that he wasn't well. I mean, you've got to be sensible about these sorts of things.
Shannon, what do you think?
I understand Chris's theory, and it would make things look a little bit better, but we don't know that he didn't have tea or espresso before. Clearly the makeup part wasn't there, although to me, it looked like bad makeup, honestly. We're just in a really bad place. None of us were there to know how he was prepped, if he was over prepped, or if he's just not able to even be himself, much less the president, but himself as a person. This is not a role he needs to play. And his family really should be stepping up to protect him as an individual.
Marc Steiner,
Yeah.
what do you think?
As y'all were talking, I was just thinking of one piece that happened last night. It had little to do with politics, but was pretty scary. I kept thinking, is this how democracy dies? You've got 2 guys up there who shouldn't be up there arguing about golf. What the hell? I mean, we are in a very dangerous place. Trump is clearly anti-democratic.
He's right.
I mean, Trump is clearly anti-democratic. I don't mean Democratic Party. I mean, he's anti-democratic. He wants to be an authoritarian. He was one of the worst presidents we've ever had. Biden is just beyond his time. He shouldn't be up there. You need people with the energy and vitality. Look, like you said, somebody mentioned Gavin Newsom. Like Gavin Newsom would be an incredible candidate for president of the United States, and hard to beat. And I think that we're in a really very difficult spot right now as a country, and on many levels. We're a divided nation, deeply divided, almost in half. And the future does not look very bright. It looks so bad that both my kids, my biological kids, have the right to a foreign passport. I'm going to make sure they get it, because when I go, because I'm as old as they are, I want them to have a way out if they have to way out. And I think that's how bad. I think that's as dangerous a future we're facing at this moment.
You don't have any plans to go now or shortly during the show, right?
No, I mean, look.
I know
what I'm saying is, let me put it this way.
Right.
I work with a lot of people in news all the time. And I work with organizations that are being run by guys, men and women who are 30, 40, 50 years old. They should be running the organization. I've had my time running organizations. I don't do that anymore. These guys should not be in front and running for president. Neither one should be running for president. Neither one.
What are we going to do about
it? Let me say that Marc and I disagree on a lot of things, but I think he's a very good man, and I do not like either of these candidates. My candidate was Nikki Haley, and I think could you imagine her in that debate last night with her articulation, how brilliant she is? I mean, she would have been an exceptional candidate. But I think that Gavin Newsom, I mean, that's where we really disagree. I think Gavin Newsom is charismatic, but I think he's awful. And I can go through what he's done to California, but I think that the two candidates, Mark's bottom line, I think are really beneath what the American people deserve. I think he's absolutely correct on that.
Richard,
Final
you know,
comment on this. Go ahead.
yeah, you know, Trump made 30 false claims last night, and
Yes.
at least half of them were repeated once or twice, which means that he was lying at least once every minute since he was speaking for half of the 90 minutes. And the only way to deal with that is to be able to counterpunch and hit all those fastballs when they're coming over the plate. And Newsom and Shapiro have that skill. It takes a verbal acuity that is unparalleled in debate to be able to do that. They have that. And that's the only way to deal with someone like this, who was literally getting away with unbelievable murder last night on the substantive issues. It's just striking when you look at the words and not watch the video. But at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to 4% of the country, which is still undecided, in the northern blue wall of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Okay, that's what did in Hillary Clinton. Now, if somehow the Democrats can salvage this and reclaim that blue wall like they had in 2020, okay, that gets them to 270. And I think Newsom, and particularly Shapiro, since he's the governor of one of those states, Pennsylvania, could pull it off. But now's the time to act, and now is the time. And the only person who is going to convince him to do this and step down, other than his wife, is if Obama and Clinton go in and see him in person and have a heart-to-heart with him. That's the only way it's going to happen.
Here's what we have to do. Very interesting, a lot of money being spent to try to get Larry Hogan elected senator. And we're going to discuss that right after we hear more from Howard.
Thank you, Rich. You know, Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes the extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor and a nurse, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. So give him a call next time you need a lawyer at 410-547-8568. Barry Glazer gets results. You know, with baseball in full swing and the Orioles in contention, head over to Pappas Restaurant and Sports Bars. You can dine in the bar surrounded by more big screen TVs than you can imagine, or you can have a gourmet meal in the dining room part of Pappas. Either way, you can enjoy the award-winning Pappas crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the Fab Cake. It's Oprah's favorite, and Pappas ships all over the country. Enjoy a dining experience second to none at Pappas. Back to you, Richard.
All right, now we're going to turn to another crucial election. Former Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan versus Democratic Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks to fill the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Ben Cardin. And millions of dollars are being spent to run TV commercials for Hogan. Now, in one recent spot, Hogan ends it with a quote from Democratic President John F. Kennedy. So, and if you watched any Oriole games recently, there's a spot for Larry Hogan at almost every break between innings. What do you think is going to happen in this race? Shannon, what do you think?
My hope is that Larry Hogan will win, quite frankly. I think that he spent more time than any politician I've seen in recent history really trying to be about people and not parties. He tried to look at issues. He tried to be to the center and to be moderate. And I think that kind of people first attitude is something that in this election of the two candidates, we only get from Hogan. Also, Brooks is very opinionated. She is extremely progressive, or trying to be. Her own folks in her own party aren't sure who she is and what she represents. And I think we've got enough of that in politics. With Larry Hogan, he has a track record across the state. We know what we're getting, and we know he will at least attempt to be moderate. And I think right now, that's what we need representing our state in Washington.
There's a newly released poll, Angela also Brooks leading Larry Hogan by 11 points, including third party and independent candidates here. Head to head, she leads Hogan at this date by 8 points. Who won? Joy, Chris?
So, yeah, I think Trump's recent endorsement of Hogan, which actually Hogan didn't even know about the next day when they asked him about it, is something that the Democrats are going to have to try to exploit to paint him as a Trump MAGA foot soldier, not as a moderate Republican governor. He dusted off his talking points as the Maryland governor, and that's what he wants to run on. But they need to paint him as a MAGA foot soldier. And he's taking the MAGA money from Trump and McConnell with the super PACs. And they need to link the two of them, because if he's taking the money from the MAGA folks, he won't be able to hide that from the Maryland Blue Dog Democrats, who he's hoping will support him, because if he does win this seat, it could be devastating to the Democratic Party, potentially losing the White House, not winning back the House, and then losing the Senate. That could be devastating.
I think,
Well, go ahead, Marc, please.
if to follow up on that, I think the Democrats have to be really strategic. I think they can't attack Hogan personally, or they lose. I mean, but you can do what you just said and talk about who would run the Senate if Hogan won. What it would mean for the future of the country, the dangers ahead if Hogan's allowed to win and the right-wing Republicans are allowed to seize power. That's what Democrats have to talk about. I think that right now it looks like Angela Alsobrooks is ahead, but that lead could evaporate if they don't strategically run this campaign.
I think that poll was taken by Democratic interests. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But on the other hand, I think Larry Hogan is exactly the kind of Republican that Maryland needs, wants, and has voted for in the past. I cannot understand how a Larry Hogan, who is as reasonable and centrist as he is, could not win a fight against Alsobrooks, who is, to me, not a very impressive person rhetorically, not a very impressive person politically. I think Larry Hogan is going to win, even if he needs to come back some points, and I think he should win.
You know, it's also interesting to me that we're talking about how to prop up people that really don't have what it takes to do the job. We can all strategize about how to get someone elected. The question is, do we just care about wins on a piece of paper about getting someone elected, or do we want someone that can actually do the job to the benefit? I do not see that as Angela Alsobrooks. Many of her own folks that the woman that replaced her, her folks don't see her as the person for the job. We need to get away from the personality and the smoke and mirrors and all the propping up to actually get to some substantive policy to be able to move our state and this country in the correct direction.
Which is why I would vote for Angela Alsobrooks.
Why? I understand, but elaborate a little bit.
Because Larry Hogan, I've interviewed Larry Hogan over and over again. And I've interviewed Angela Alsobrooks numerous times as well over the years. And I think that people kind of attacking her as not being up to the job is absurd. She's bright, she knows politics, she knows what she's doing, and her policy, she's on top of policy. And so is Hogan. The question is, which policy direction do you think our country should go in? And I don't think it should go in the direction that Hogan wants to take it, let alone the people who will then control the Senate in this country, who are right-wing Republicans, who are going to take us down the toilet. So if there's a huge reason to vote for Angela Alsobrooks, that's it.
Sometimes I have to be reminded as to why I disagree with Marc. And so I thank Marc for that statement.
The other dynamic, Richard, is it's one thing to have a veteran Republican moderate senator from Alaska or Maine be able to step out and do what they want to do, or at least create the appearance of what they want to do in some ways, and get that extra distance from McConnell in order to separate themselves like that. But they've earned their spurs in the Senate and earned the right to do that. It's a completely different thing from a freshman senator named Hogan, who's no longer the chief executive of a state, coming in there. He's and with a new leader, he's going to be told to vote however John Thune tells him to vote. Okay, so that's how they need to keep painting him, as a MAGA foot soldier who's going to vote in the way that Thune tells him to vote, because Trump told Thune how to have the people vote, just like Trump did with killing the border deal that conservative Senator Lankford from Oklahoma negotiated, and everybody was on the same page, but Trump didn't want it because it would make him look bad and make Biden look good. Anybody
who thinks that Larry Hogan is malleable doesn't know Larry Hogan. And so I think that that is not correct.
All right, listen, you guys were terrific today. We're just about out of time. And I want to thank you. I want you all to know that our viewership continues to grow. We do get a lot more viewers than we did when we were on television one time on a weekend. Now we run 24/7, and the audience continues to build. Tell your friends we're here at squareoff.net. We are now in our 41st year. I know it wasn't not consecutive, but we've been around for the whole time. And I want to thank Rick. Shannon, good luck in your race for mayor of Baltimore on the Republican side. Marc Steiner, you will definitely come back. And Chris Kennedy, thank you so much. We'll see you in court. And we'll see you next time. Have a safe, fun 4th of July. And maybe by the end of that, we'll know who the Democrats are thinking about running if it's not Joe Biden. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you next time. And once again, we're off.